Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. Taryn, my man, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's good to be back with you, Dan. We try to do it every week, but some weeks work better than others. But it's always good to be back, and yeah, excited for the show.
So we got a lot of stuff to break down. I am going to be on location in Portugal next week for my sister-in-law's wedding. I've tried to explain this to people. I was telling it to my barber yesterday, and I've messed it up the explanation so many times, but now I know how to do it. I am officiating the wedding, but I'm not
Oh,
ordained, right? I'm not ordained. I'm not anything like that. They have already been married
yeah,
in a little private ceremony, a small one. Wasn't at a courthouse, but a small little, just family. And now they're doing like the real wedding, the destination wedding. So they could have got a real ordained person to come out there and do it. But because they're already married, yours truly is basically going to be playing the part of an ordained person, right? It's going to sound like everything's legit. And it's going to sound like when I say place the ring on her hand, it's going to sound like it's all legit, but it's already been legit. So here's the best part. I can't fuck it up because even if I, pass out from or faint from heat exhaustion, they're already married. So it's like house money. It's fantastic. It's great.
Dan. You know how I know that there's like kismet, like for us to be pals and do this. I am
Tell me.
literally doing the same thing in Spain at the end of September for one of my law school buddies. They will
Look at
also
us.
be married beforehand. But yeah, that's awesome. Is this a sister-in-law that listens to the show?
I don't have a sister-in-law that listens to the show.
I thought one of your wife's sisters.
My father-in-law listens to the show. He
Oh,
might be
okay.
listening to this, but
All right.
sister-in-law does not. She likes me though, obviously, as indicated by her willingness to have me do the thing. So, but let's not get sidetracked. And I'll ask you what kismet. I don't know what that word you said is, but we'll worry about that offline. Okay. So we might not have a show next week. We'll see. Taryn, you'll hold down the fort with Mike K to the extent I'm not available, but I'm likely not going to be recording. Um, okay. Couple things. So I felt the need to do a big episode this week. We'll try to keep this one pretty tight. Um, we have some pretty big stories. And we've been doing this podcast for going on four and a half years, and there aren't really that many stories that like get me so excited. And there was a couple stories this week that got me off the couch. And I'm like, you know what? Let's come back. Guns a blazing. People need to know. And also, I'm going to say this, and I mean this in the best possible way. Um, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Not a day goes by where I don't like listen to at least one podcast. I heard people breaking down one of the topics we're going to discuss, and I thought it was so bad that I'm like, you know, the people need us, Taryn. The people need a real breakdown. So, what topics are we talking about? Well, if you're listening to the podcast, you already know the topics. And I always forget that because we could do the roadmap, but you guys already see the topics. Here's what we're talking about in no particular order, in the order that will make sense to us. We're going to talk about a topic that we spent a lot of time and effort speaking about 6 months ago. That is the Xavier Lucas, Wisconsin, Miami dance. I don't know what we're going to call it, but that has proceeded to its next logical level. And unless you're living under a rock, and maybe you are because it's summertime and you're a law student, you're not in school, you're not paying attention to the news, Wisconsin followed through on their threat and they sued for a version, and we'll talk about it, of basically tampering. We're going to talk about it. Wisconsin is suing Miami. They're not suing Xavier Lucas, which I probably think if we go back in the archives and we find that episode, I'm pretty sure we said, but neither here nor there. We're going to break down what we know about that case. It's going to be the first of probably a handful of podcasts we discuss on that lawsuit, which I think is precedential. I think it is monumental, monstrous, all the big words. I want to make sure we give its proper time. Now, second to that, Taryn, another huge, monumental, gigantic lawsuit. That is Big League Advantage getting sued by Fernando Tatis Jr. People don't know. Maybe what is this Big League Advantage? We will explain it. It is a lawsuit challenging the very, I don't know, sanctity of the business model. Taryn, no one usually interrupts me on the roadmap, but you can go ahead because you're my best friend. Go ahead.
Uh, that's really nice. It's Big League Advance.
They changed the name, right?
No, I thought it was always big league
Nah,
advance.
nah. I think it was big league advantage at some point. Doesn't matter. BLA is what we're doing with. I'm actually not sure what entity they named in the caption, and it wouldn't surprise me if they named both. I did read the complaint, and I did read the long exhibit that I purchased off the San Diego County website, which was $27 for me to purchase to get the full complaint. I did some hardcore research on this because I have some clients that have been interested in this idea. We'll talk about it.
Hand
Okay,
up. I was
was that
wrong.
right? I was
Yeah.
right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
they changed the
changed
name.
the name from
They changed the name.
advanced to advantage.
Yeah. Sometimes this is not just a hat over here. Okay, it's not just a hat. Do you know the reference?
No.
Nah. Don't worry about it. I'm older than you. Okay. So, and last but not least, we have a decision coming out of the NFL, which I believe Mike Florio called like the most significant decision in the history of mankind. I don't know if he said that exactly, but he thinks that this decision here is being buried. Our job is to talk about legal cases, so we were going to talk about it either way. You'll hear what we say, and it has some semblances to prior topics we've covered, but three monstrous stories. And then, listen, because people like my bets, I have yet to come to the table. Like shouldn't curse, but like I've been kind of half in and half out on some bets I've been giving you this. I've been researching this. I have a very big bet, Taryn, that I am putting a lot of money on, and I did a lot of research. Because listen, I do what I do. I do the research. I tell people to bet it, not bet it. I've gone so far with this to tell clients to take this bet. I said, take it, don't take it, but this bet makes a lot of sense. So I have one. If you want to stay to the end of the episode, or if you want to forward to the end of the episode, I have a very good one, and it is one that involves golf. It involves golf. So we'll talk about that if we have time. There's an interesting development with FanDuel. Change their terms and conditions if we have time. We should, though. Taryn, I said a mouthful. Wisconsin, okay? I'm going to lay the stage very quickly, and then I'm going to pass it to you for the development, okay? Because I want you. We're riding shotgun together today. We got to shake and bake. We got to like ham and egg it. Yeah, that's what they say in golf. Ham and egg it. So we were on a podcast in January, and I listened to it somewhat recently for my class, and I taught this, I lectured on it. So Xavier Lucas signs a revenue share agreement with Wisconsin. We're going to talk about the enforceability, applicability, timing of the contract, all that fun stuff. But he signs an agreement. I guess we'll say allegedly, because I haven't seen a copy of said agreement. But for all intents and purposes, let's assume he signs agreement with Wisconsin. This is the version of events that's told to us by Xavier Lucas's lawyer, former guest of the show, Darren Heitner. He says that Xavier Lucas essentially tried to put his name in the portal, and Wisconsin didn't let him. And the portal opened and closed without Xavier Lucas formally being put into the transfer portal. So we couldn't transfer like most players could. So like any other players could. So according to the version of events that we were given, Xavier Lucas basically decides to academically unenroll at Wisconsin and transfer basically as a student to Miami. And as fate would have it, somehow or another, he ends up on the Miami football team as, I guess, what we'll refer to as a walk-on is the easiest way to explain it. And, under the Wisconsin's version, and in order for him to have ended up on Miami's football team, he had to have spoken to someone. And what I believe to be Xavier Lucas's version is that, I don't need to speak to anybody. I didn't tamper with anyone or anything. I had no representations or commitments that I was going to be accepted to Miami or play for the team. I'm just a South Florida kid, and I wanted to be near my dad, who's sick in the South Florida region. I was recruited by Miami originally, so I kind of had a good feeling that they would let me in to the extent that I ended up there academically. Okay. That is the nature of the beast. Then we had some interesting, we'll say, commentary statements from Wisconsin, from the Big Ten, from Darren Heitner, some back and forth. There were lawsuits threatened on both sides. And now here we are, 6 months later, and one lawsuit has been filed. Taryn, I will take a back seat. I will hand you the mic, my friend. Tell us about this recent development. I'll take anything you give me, analysis, factually. We got a lot to unpack.
Yeah. So let's start here. You mentioned the lawsuit that was filed last Friday by the University of Wisconsin against Miami specifically. So there was a lot of talk about would they go after Xavier Lucas directly, because the agreement that they had for licensing a revenue share, whatever you call it, these agreements that are going into effect next week on July 1st, if they were going to go after the player. but they've decided not to. And I think that that might be the most interesting piece of this, is that they are suing a fellow NCAA member, a member institution, the University of Miami, for tortious interference. And so the player here, Xavier Lucas, we obviously know who it is because of all of the commotion around his transfer and not being entered into the portal within the 48 hours as is required. But he's just referred to as student athlete A. And so I think just starting there is something that I found to be really interesting. The other thing that I found to be really interesting is that this seems to have sign off all the way in Rosemount at the Big Ten league offices, where they're standing behind Wisconsin's decision to pursue this. And so I do think that this is going to be kind of the case that we look at, even if it gets settled, as being the case that at least sets some rules as to what you're supposed to do when a player is at another institution and they want to keep that player. This agreement that Lucas had with Wisconsin was for 2 years. He was one of their top players during his freshman year. It was somebody that they were really counting on, and he was immediately able to go to the University of Miami and be one of their top cornerbacks. So this is a significant loss to the University of Wisconsin. I'm not surprised that they're upset about this, but I do like that maybe we're going to get a little bit more clarity when it comes to what you can and can't do in trying to get a player to come over and join your program through the portal.
Yeah, it's well said. So let's, we'll go back into the analysis in a minute, and we want to make sure we spend enough time on this topic while we get to everything else. But somebody asked me, I had a client ask me, what is the significance of this lawsuit? Why do you think this is such a big deal? And I don't think the greater media is understanding the significance of this. I think the college sports media gets it, but if Wisconsin is wrong, put it that way. Let's say Wisconsin is wrong, that what was done is totally fine. This will open up the floodgates in a way that might be good, right? You and I are not here to say what is good or what's wrong. All I want to say is that there is a transfer portal that exists that I'm not going to say every other player before him, but we'll say 99.8% of players will go through. And there's certain designated times of the year that players can transfer. And after that, they can't. After that, once that window closes, which is a relatively short window, it's a matter of days, that player cannot talk to other schools without fear of getting some type of violation. And the school, in terms of getting in trouble for improper recruiting, right? That's not to say that it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen through intermediaries, and it doesn't go unpunished most of the time. But we kind of understand when a player at least can transfer. There's always, for the beginning of time, it doesn't even have to be sports. You have an exclusive negotiating window, and once the contract expires, you can't talk to anybody else for the next 60 days. This is an entertainment contract, for example, that we could have. Make up a fake number. For every 10 times that's in a contract, how many people find a way to get a message to an outside party to figure out what their worth is? Or even, we're talking about NFL players. If a player's contract expires at the end of the year, you're kidding yourself if you're thinking that the agent's not getting on the phone and finding out what the player's worth is, right? Just the nature of the beast. Now, we don't have those battles fought in open court about tampering. Those are fought behind closed doors in grievance procedures or private arbitration procedures that we never hear about or see. Maybe we'll get a ruling, like the Knicks got a tampering punishment last year for some nonsense about draft picks and whatnot. It doesn't really matter. That's not really what we're here to talk about. But we are here to talk about a case that involves open discovery and open court and depositions and figuring out who said what to who and when and where and why. And we have two major programs at the center of this. And we have Wisconsin sending a message on a big picture level. If you come after our players, we will come after you. We're not going to go after the player. So that leads me to my next conversation. Again, we'll see who wins this debate. We don't know. And the answer really is going to lie in the devil of the details. What conversations did occur between Lucas, and Miami in this interim period, between intermediaries of Lucas and the university. I can go under any number of rabbit holes, but like you and I, Taryn, don't know the substance. All I'll say is that Wisconsin threatened to file a lawsuit 6 months ago. And I imagine between the last 6 months, they did their due diligence. And I would find it very odd that they would wait 6 months with no new evidence, no new indication of anything, and go ahead and file a lawsuit. That to me is my spider sense. Could I be wrong? 100%. Could Wisconsin be sending the message and they want to just put it out there and they threatened to file a lawsuit? They didn't get any new evidence and they're doing it anyway. And they're hoping discovery is going to bear out and they're going to figure this thing out. It's also possible, but I think it's newsworthy, the filing of this lawsuit in and of itself. Now, Taryn, here's where, let's say, Taryn, that there's some form of, some type of improper communication that Wisconsin's aware of. Here's my question to you, Taryn. I have two questions. You ready for this? Can you make the argument to me that that Wisconsin contract at the time that it was, quote, tampered with was not enforceable? Can you make that argument?
Yeah, I think I can, because it wasn't effective until, still not effective technically, but we didn't even have the settlement.
Bingo.
The settlement wasn't finalized at that time.
Right. And at the time, and you and I both have seen collective contracts and the rev share contracts, it was a contingent contract. So it wasn't, I mean, I can make the argument both ways. I could say detrimental reliance and we knew this thing was going to be enforceable. I'm just saying
we gave him one of the largest contracts on the team.
Right. You can make the argument for Wisconsin that it was enforceable. You signed something. Just because it wasn't enforceable yet doesn't mean it was enforceable. And if you were Xavier Lucas's side, you can say that at the time that this contract was signed or quote unquote tampered with, there was no guarantee that House was going to pass by July 1st, such that this contract would have gone into effect. So it's not quite like an automatic virtual guarantee this contract would have been effective. So again, gray areas in that argument. Now, Taryn, I'm going to give you this other piece. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Why was Xavier Lucas not named as a party in this case?
I think for optics.
Bingo. Tell me why. I agree with you, but why do you think?
Yeah, I just don't think Wisconsin wants to be in a position where they're seen as going after student athletes that were at their school. I don't want that. I don't think that they want to develop that type of reputation, which is why, for instance, I thought it was so interesting that Arkansas straight up said about Madden Imaleva that they were going to go after him. Right? I think that Wisconsin is being pretty smart here. They're treading lightly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think when I read Wisconsin statements at the time, I thought they were going to go after the player. I think they kind of left it amorphous. But just the nature of tortious interference with the contract, in order to have a valid claim with the contract needs to have been violated or breached in some type of way. And if you could have attempted tortious interference with the contract, which doesn't have as many damages, but the contract would still need to be breached or violated at the end of the day. So if Wisconsin feels confident that the contract has been tortiously interfered with, which certainly it has because he's now enrolled at Miami, right? Like there's just as easily a claim for breach of contract vis-a-vis Xavier Lucas and the Wisconsin contract.
Can I also give you the second piece of optics that I think that it's smart? They have on the other side, Xavier Lucas has an attorney who has the ear of the media and has been, out there and has been at the forefront of NIL since the beginning. So I don't think that they really want to have that person as their enemy. And does Heitner really, and maybe we could ask him, does he really care if Wisconsin sues Miami? That's not his client.
Well, he does. And Darren listens to the podcast, so this is full disclosure. Like Darren teaches at Miami, and he has obviously ties to Miami. So I don't think he was wishing that Miami gets sued. Now, I'm sure he's happy that I think is his client, Xavier Lucas, and all this. I don't know if he's still actively engaged, but Darren is Darren's out there. He puts his opinions out there. He's been pretty quiet on this front. I'll just say that, and I'm sure we could ask him, but I'm not going to repeat this on the show.
Yeah,
but
since April, he's been quiet about it.
He's been quiet about this case, and we'll see what comes of it. But I think it's a very big case, and Darren, and Darren said this online. I'm not repeating anything that he's not been public about. Darren, he's been public that he did his homework and he thought that this was a viable route to get someone out of a school and not have exposure. You know, hard stop on the player. Player's not being sued, so you could read into that. Number one, maybe it's not just optics. Maybe Darren was right. It still doesn't make the school in all of this, absent some type of communication. You still have to prove it, and the burden's going to be on the plaintiff. But anyway, I point this out to say it's a big case, involves a lot of big players. I got a lot. My college contacts all understand the significance of it, but it's not getting the reporting that I whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not rooting that the story gets more attention, but I do think it is very big. If Wisconsin were to lose this case, let's just say the floodgates are open. And again, maybe if you're on the player movement, free market type bandwagon, you love it. You love that players can leave whatever they want. I have found myself years into this thinking that, like, for better for worse, we just need some rules. I'm not here to say what the best rules are, but again, CBAs, we've done this dog and pony show on the podcast about how the CBA would be very helpful for non-statutory labor exemption purposes. We'll talk about it another time, but we are here. Chaos is among us. Taryn, I'm okay leaving that where it is. We're obviously going to cover that again. I'd like to, while we're talking about significant lawsuits involving football players, we'll do big league advantage or big league advance next. Can you give us an opening on what this NFLPA, we'll say grievance, collusion, this whole, we'll wrap it up, but you tell me, give me a little bit of what's about, and we'll talk about the significance, according to a couple people that have read the 61-page decision in its entirety.
Yeah, it was a grievance that was filed by the NFL Players Association against the NFL, that a decision was handed down in January, and we're just finding out about it now. And so part of this story, especially from Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio's perspective, is that neither the NFL or the NFLPA wanted this story out. But essentially, the claim is that certain veteran quarterbacks are not receiving fully guaranteed money. So amongst those players mentioned would be Lamar Jackson, the multiple-time MVP, and Kyler Murray. And I think probably what is getting the biggest headlines here is that there's direct contact amongst the owners. I mean, like, I think we all always knew that happened, but this is direct evidence that was submitted as part of these proceedings, which has Cardinals owner Michael Bidwill and Dean Spanos from the Chargers directly discussing quarterback compensation in the context of Kyler Murray's contract, which is incentive laden significantly, and Justin Herbert's upcoming contract negotiations. I think that here, what is interesting is that the NFL, even though the arbitrator found that the NFL was giving guidance, because they didn't put it in writing, there was no damages being awarded. But they were found to, quote, have their hand in the cookie jar a little bit. So everyone's conspiratorial ideas of like how the NFL functions behind closed doors in the smoke-filled rooms and giving that legs. So I don't think it's particularly positive for the NFL, but the NFLPA didn't want it out there because they didn't win anything.
Okay, so this reminds me, and when I say that two people that read the 61-page decision, I tried to find this, the full decision. My understanding is that Florio got a copy and Pablo Torre got a copy. That was really it. So we're relying a little bit on what these guys are saying, and they want to use it for content and clicks and podcast episodes. All good. So here's where I just want to read a portion of this, and students in my class will understand the analogy, hopefully. So basically, the decision essentially reads that the NFL and the management committee did try to encourage NFL owners to essentially collude with one another to lessen guarantees or to not let guarantees get out of control, which is a concept like we did the Deshaun Watson episodes years ago. I've presented and lectured on the Lamar Jackson contract, like how how Deshaun's contract really impacted Lamar Jackson's market because he wanted to, reset the market and get Deshaun Watson's guarantee. And you don't really need to be a lawyer to understand that that's what was happening. That was a part of the delay. And we've since moved in an opposite direction from Deshaun in terms of a 100% guaranteed contract. So that doesn't really happen unless everyone's taking notice. So whatever. Could it be a coincidence? Could it be not? I could make the arguments both ways. Now, what this decision essentially says is it wasn't really a coincidence, that there was conversations that occurred, and NFL was at least attempting to influence those decisions at a broader level. So now you're asking yourself, okay, well, why didn't the NFLPA win in that grievance if the NFL was found to have committed those acts? I'm going to read from Mike Florio's report. Again, we don't have access to it. If someone can send us copy of the 61 pages, great. We'll do another episode, and if not, it is what it is. So this is Florio explaining how the NFL ultimately won. The NFL ultimately won because Droney found that the evidence introduced at the 2024 hearing did not prove by a, quote, clear preponderance, close quote, of the evidence that the teams accepted and acted on the encouragement of the NFL Management Committee. So you have a decision that says that the NFL did the thing. They said, hey, you guys should, collude, and you guys shouldn't have as many guarantees, like try to tempt this down. And you have a decision that says that the NFL, that there was not a clear preponderance that the teams accepted and acted on the encouragement of the NFL Management Committee. So that leaves open the possibility, at least according to Florio's interpretation, that the teams came to this conclusion independently, but they didn't need it from the NFL Management Committee, which I think should leave a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Now, Taryn, it's very similar, and this is a topic I bring up in all my sports law classes. When the NFL found, they did an investigation on themselves. They're like, okay, what's this that Brian Florio or Dolphins coach, Brian Flores. What's this about Brian Flores accusing the owner of the team of tampering and tanking and saying we should lose games on purpose, and he's paying me cash? So this was, you're laughing, but like Brian Flores put in his complaint, that the owner of the team basically said, I'll pay you six figures every time you lose, and that Flores heard this, and to him it seemed like a real significant offer, a six-figure offer per game to lose games on purpose. So Flores says this in his, class action racial discrimination lawsuit. He puts it in. It has very little to do, if anything, with racial discrimination or the actual cause of action, the complaint, but he puts it out there to basically sandbag the Dolphins. So the NFL does their investigation, and what they find, interestingly, is that the owner of the team, whose name escapes me, you can tell me, what was the owner of the Dolphins? Stephen Ross. They find that Stephen Ross said the thing that he said, if you lose games on purpose, I will give you a six-figure check every time you lose games on purpose. And they found that Flores heard that, received that information, but they found that it was said in jest and it wasn't serious and it was joking. And we're not going to punish you for the tanking allegations. We're going to punish you for tampering, and don't worry about it. Like, this thing is over here. So it's very similar. There's a finding that the thing did happen, but the decision rests on some other technicality over here. Like, but it is interesting that the NFL, mechanisms for investigations and here a grievance procedure have somewhere in writing that the thing occurred. So, I think the Flores one, the NFL, their hand was kind of forced because of the nature of his sworn complaint that's out there. And credit to Mike Florio, and Pablo Torre. If you read Florio's piece on it, I have Pablo's podcast queued up to listen to tonight, but they were apparently competing to get this thing out since January, that the NFL really seemingly did not want this thing out. So credit to them. And, I think it is very significant. I'm not sure what there is to do with it. And it might confirm the obvious, but yeah, it's interesting that this now exists somewhere in writing, that the NFL at least attempted to, affect the marketplace. Cool. Taryn, nothing to add. Okay, let's move on. Third topic. We'll see if we have room for FanDuel. I have about 15 minutes on the clock before the au pair comes, and makes me have to watch the children. This is what happens. Listen, if people get a sense, I try to record late in the day, and then sometimes babysitting duties take over. Fernando Tatis, big league advantage, big league advance, big league advantage. Which one are we going with?
BLA.
BLA is a company, and they've made headlines. We've It's Gervin Dexter. We've covered
Devon Dexter. Yeah.
yeah, we've covered a lawsuit involving BLA at one point in time. Um, if you've never heard of it, you should look it up. It is a business that's not an NIL company. They're very clearly not an NIL, and they're not handing out loans because they're not really guaranteed in the same way a loan is guaranteed with interest, and you have to pay it back at some point. It's a very interesting company, and again, as someone now, I've read every word of this agreement between Fernando Tatis and Big League Advantage. I read the full complaint. What is the company is based on this premise that they're going to give you a certain amount of money, a lot of money, a player who might be in the minor leagues or in college that needs an upfront cash infusion. In exchange for that cash, they're going to get a certain percentage of their earnings for the rest of their life. Now, here, I always thought it was life. When we actually read the Fernando Tatis agreement, which is public, so I can't imagine I'm saying anything bad, but anybody can buy it off of the website. It's a 25-year contract, and Fernando Tatis was given $2 million as a 17-year-old in exchange for 10% of his earnings for his career. Now, lawyers, there's 100 reps and warranties. There's every disclaimer in the books, and I certify that I read this with the lawyer. So I'm not really quite sure why just in a vacuum this contract's not enforceable. Fernando Tatis is trying to invalidate it based on some California consumer protection laws, which, independent of the words of the contract, if you have a contract or agreement that's so grossly inequitable and unconscionable, Fernando Tatis's lawyers say it just shouldn't be enforced. Now, that speaks to California. It's not going to speak to any number of other states and sports that have some skin in the game with respect to BLA. Now, Taryn, I say this. We're going to put this out here. Fernando Tatis, as a 17-year-old, has no guarantee of making the majors, has no guarantee of being a success at the major league level. But when you're in the minor leagues, you have your signing bonus, but you're generally making a very small base salary, and sometimes you need a cash infusion to get the right trainers, to get the right nutrition, to live in a nice apartment, to drive around, to have a car, anything, to have nice clothes, to feel good about yourself, to feel confident. So that money is going somewhere. That money, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that money didn't in some way, shape, or form advance his career to a next logical level. Now, I don't represent Big League Advantage at all. I find it to be unfair that a player, right? And now, how old is Fernando Tatis now? Like, was he 25, 26?
Yeah.
We're now 9 years, 7, 8, 9 years after this contract was signed. The cash has been checked. These players they don't have to take the money. It's not like a loan shark, right? And there's no guarantee. The contract is very clear. If the player doesn't reach the major league level, they have no obligation to pay them back. So I could sit here on the sidelines and say the Big League Advantage, which is a company founded by, I believe, former professional athletes with some PE money that's baked in, they're kind of doing a service. They're giving money without any guarantee that they're going to be compensated on the back end. I seem to find I shouldn't be on this, and maybe people that are listening to this think I'm an idiot. I find this to be pretty unfair that Tatis is trying to get out. I get it. He might get out on a technicality of consumer laws that he owes them another $30 million or whatever it is, and they only paid him $2 million. That just might be the nature of the beast and the risk reward that you happen to be so good that you got this amount of money. I don't know, Taryn. I mean, the lawsuit speaks for itself. Again, we'll see. It's the whole business model, right? If this is a winning case, you're going to see a number of these follow up. I believe Ellie De La Cruz is another player who signed with Big League Advantage. There's a number of guys that you guys would have heard of that, Big League Advantage has investors, and they have people that are, relying on this money. If people's jobs depend on this money, the actual infrastructure of the company was dependent on this model. And I'm sure a number of players were given amounts of money based on the success of the Fernando Tatis contract. So to come in 7, 8 years, 9 years later, just it rubs me the wrong way. And again, I have no dog in the race. You could tell me I'm an idiot, that Fernando Tatis deserves his money, but that's the deal he struck. And I'm not really seeing, other than maybe a technicality in California, I'm not seeing a real reason within the four corners of this contract, which I have now read, that this should be invalidated.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and this is not the first time. It's not even the first time that a San Diego Padres player has sued Big League Advantage. Francisco Mejia, who was once a top prospect, he received $360,000 in 2016 in exchange for 10% of his future earnings, and he also claimed that it was predatory. He filed a lawsuit, ended up subsequently dropping it. And he apologized. He said that he was appreciative of their information and support. He doesn't believe that they deceived him. All of his interactions were professional and respectful. So
Well, Taryn, just because we're short on time, I'll jump in here. The point being, and the why this one is significant. I'm aware of other. Gervin Dexter was the Florida defensive tackle who was drafted by the Bears. Claimed
yeah,
he got a raw deal, it's 300,000. It's a whole nonsense. The reason that this one is interesting is because it is the creme de la creme. When I talk about big league advantage or big league advance, whatever we're calling BLA to clients, or just conversationally to friends that want to know about the business model, I talk about Fernando Tatis. So he is the poster boy for this going wrong for the player. Now I can mention I don't know big league advantages or big BLA's full client roster, but like just mathematically, my understanding and having read up on the company is that they lose far more often than they win, but they really just need to hit on one out of every 20 players. And they have a lot of analytics and a lot of stuff to help identify the right players that they want to use. And it's up to the player to accept the contract. And $2 million up front is no small amount of money. $2 million with the thought that like Fernando Tatis might not even make it to the majors. He could get hit in the head with God forbid, with a beanball the next day or have concussion or this, and he might not make it. And that's $2 million out of their pocket. So I gather to say it's probably one of the biggest upfronts that they've given to a player. And for that player to then challenge it is newsworthy. So we'll figure this out. A lot of players are eyeing this, and we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. But you rest assured, there are tens of millions of dollars that are kind of up in the air that really threaten BLA's full model. Whether or not they win and lose on Tatis's position is one thing, but how it affects the rest of the model is very interesting. And there are a lot of copycat companies out there that are paying close attention. Taryn, anything else to add on Tatis before we move on to our final segment?
yeah. Sorry. What I was gonna say is that I think it was Franmil Reyes also owes some money to Big League Advance, and so there was some mention that it's possible that Fernando Tatis was filing this to blow up the entire system so that that would help out his friend as well. So another possible name.
I could certainly see that. Taryn, let's do the FanDuel piece pretty quick. Do you have the I'll give the background. Can you pull up the parlay, the actual parlay that what it was? Okay. Let's work our way backwards. So I became aware of this, and I'll try to do this pretty quick as we have just a couple minutes left in the episode. There there's somewhat of a dispute as to whether or not they made this change or not. But here's where the story starts. Okay, there is a gambler, or we'll say somebody that sells picks for a living or has premium picks, put out a parlay with X amount of baseball players to hit a home run on a particular night. Taryn, do you have the players to hit the home run, and do you have the general odds of this?
Yeah, I got it. So Aaron Judge, Ellie De La Cruz, Ronald Acuna, Cal Raleigh, Ketel Marte, Christian Yelich, and James Wood.
Okay, so the odds I have it, it paid something like 900, like it paid basically 9,000 to 1. Put it that way. I'm not going to give plus math. So 9,000 to 1. So if you bet $11, you got $100,000. It's a lot of money. So somebody put this bet out, a professional bettor, handicapper, whatever you want to call it, and a number of people tailed this bet. So at least what I saw reportedly is that that FanDuel, where the bets, I believe the majority of them were placed. I don't know if they were all placed, but at least FanDuel in particular took in the vicinity of a $2 million loss just on that action. Just on that. God forbid, if somebody bet $100 and not $11, that was $1 million. So that's the type of action we're dealing with. So there was a lot of attention paid to some terms in FanDuel's terms and conditions. And I'm just going to read this because I'm sure we have a lot of people that tail bets or whatnot. So this is I'm reading from 8.13. This is from Incarcerated Bob, who's actually I don't want to say he's a friend of the show, but I've DM'd him a couple times. And he writes, he tweets this out yesterday. FanDuel Sportsbook reserves the right to avoid any or all bets made by, any group of people acting in conjunction with each other or any individual acting alone in an attempt to defraud FanDuel Sportsbook. So that is saying a whole lot, that they can just void anything. They could either void it if they're acting in conjunction with one another, or any individual acting alone. So this was being taken to say that FanDuel was trying to avoid bets based on those, or bets placed kind of in a block with other people, and it got a lot of traction, that tweet. FanDuel has since come out and at least attempted to deny that they changed their terms to avoid paying out, and they're saying that they are paying out. So I just pointed out to say this, and we don't have to spend so long on it. FanDuel and DraftKings are private companies. They if you just go to their sites, I mean, they kind of advertise these kind of like gamified parlays that a lot of people are betting at the same time. So I would find it very odd if FanDuel had that as their practice, that if people are tailing one bet together, that you can't do it at the same time. So I would find that incredibly odd, and that could be a deal breaker to even place any bets on FanDuel. If they really took that position, that if you placed a bet in a block with people, you could lose all your money. And lose your bet if you won $1 million bet, whatever it was. So I don't know if there's much analysis there, but I just want people to be aware that this is out there. I think some FanDuel is claiming that this was quote unquote fake news, but it's a $2 million payment. And Taryn, if I bet $11 on something and it was supposed to pay out $100,000 and I wasn't paid, I would be suing everybody left and right. So this is one of these things we just want people to pay attention. I believe this was paid out in full. There was a bettor, and every once in a while I see this pass across my timeline, bettors that sue for failure to pay out. But FanDuel and DraftKings are private companies. So to the extent they don't want to pay out and they have it in their terms and conditions, tough luck getting them to enforce that. Okay, Taryn, we've now reached the portion of the show where I have about 180 seconds to tell you the action of the weekend. Are you ready for this, Taryn?
I'm ready.
This action is sponsored by Themis Bar Review, the top bar prep company in the galaxy. They're smart. We're smart. They do a lot of prep and research to get you prepped for the bar. And I have done a lot of prep and research to prepare you for what I'm about to say. Taryn, do you like that read?
I'm ready.
Okay. Taryn, do you follow professional golf?
A little bit, only because our friend John Nucci is so good at tweeting about it.
I do. I love John. I get push notifications on Nucci's tweets still to this day. Not going to belabor the point here. We're going to keep this very tight. This weekend, this event is the Rocket Classic. It's going to be in Detroit. It goes from Thursday to Saturday. They've had this for the last couple of years. Yada, 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 all that fun stuff. Do I normally bet a lot of money on weekday non-major PGA events? No, I do not. But am I betting a lot of money on this weekday PGA event that's coming up? Yes, I am, Taryn. Taryn, do you know who won last year's Rocket Classic in Detroit?
Yeah, no.
Cam Davis. Have you ever heard of Cam Davis?
No, yeah, that sounds familiar.
No, you have not. You've heard of Cam Smith and Cam Young. You don't know Cam Davis.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, you don't know Cam Davis. Cam Davis is he's like a level of JJ Spawn, where people might not have known of him, but he's got some significant wins, and one of these guys. Okay, do this part pretty quick. Cam Davis won last year. Okay, Cam Davis also won the same event in 2021. So he won it twice, same course, same event in 2021 and 2024. Taryn, your next logical question, I can see it in your face, is, well, damn, what did he do in those 2 years that he didn't win in 2022 and 2023? Taryn, are you curious what he did in those two middle events?
He finished second.
He finished 14th and 17th. So still really good. Really good. He's got 2 wins in 2 top 20 events in the last 4 years. The guy's money at this course. So you're going to say, damn, why are you talking about Cam Davis? You have a bet on Cam Davis? Of course I have a bet on Cam Davis. Cam Davis's odds to finish in the top 20, Taryn, which he has done each of the last 4 years. He clearly loves this course. I've read his media quotes. He loves the course. At least as of the time of this recording, are plus 330, which doesn't make any sense. Why would it be plus 330? His odds, Taryn, to finish, and plus 330 is 3.3 to 1. His odds to finish in the top 30, again, which he has done, and then some, each of the last 4 years, is plus 190. That's odd. And his odds to finish in the top 40, again, which he has done, and then some, I believe, as the time of this recording, are even money. Maybe it's like minus 105. So you're going to ask yourself, Taryn, why do the sports books hate Cam Davis? The guy is the defending champion at this event. Is he hurt? Does he have some mystery illness? Has he not been playing? He's been playing okay. He finished top 20 in the PGA Championship somewhat recently. He's missed a couple cuts here and there. But Taryn, that's why his odds are low. But Taryn, can I tell you something? Because I did the research on this. Do you know I did the research?
Tell me.
He was playing equally bad this time last year and came out of nowhere and won the event. So coming into last year, he had won the 2021. He'd finished top 20 twice. We didn't have this conversation on the podcast, but I actually bet on Cam Davis last year and he won. So I am very biased towards Cam Davis because he has won me a lot of money in this time last year. So Cam Davis, all he knows how to do in his career is play well at this event. I can tell you much worse bets. I've won you guys bets on Caitlin Clark to lead the WNBA in threes, Jaylen Brown to be the the finals MVP. We've won a lot of money doing this over the years. For the life of me, I can smell a rat line 20 miles away. I don't know what the rat line is in this. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I bet my own money. Again, you don't have to do it. You can just follow it over the weekend on Cam Davis to do one of three things, hopefully all of the three things. Finish top 30 plus 190, top 20 plus 330, and top 10 plus 750. I hope he plays well. And if he doesn't, I hope you don't wager too much money, but I am betting this. And for the life of me, can't understand why the sportsbook think that Cam Davis is not going to do what he's done the last 4 years. It's just not priced appropriately. That's all I'll tell you. So math, you can trust me on the expected value. For what he has done historically, it's kind of a no-brainer bet. So Taryn, can you drop just like maybe a $5, like $5 action maybe on a top 10? Maybe wet your whistle, give you some action for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, I normally fade you, but
don't do that.
Yeah, I'll trail.
You can. You know what? Bet him to miss the cut. I think that's probably like plus 250. Do whatever you want. I just want the people to have action. I want the people to be aware of the action that some of these degenerates are doing. Now, this is a good test case and why I did the FanDuel topic last, because I'm telling people to ride with me on this bet. I'm certainly not defrauding the company. I have no inside information. And I'd love for everybody to make a little bit of money. We are not betting. This is not a $2 million exposure to the books, but do what you need to do. But that's the bet. Cam Davis to top 30 or better at the Rocket Classic. That's it, Taryn. That's it. How you like them apples? You like them?
Love it.
Kismet, buddy. Kismet. I know what it is.
It means fate or destiny. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Taryn, you're the best. That'll do it for us here at Conduct Detrimental. Again, might be off next week. If not, Taryn and or Mike will pop in and we'll get an episode. We'll bank it for you guys. Always a pleasure joining you. And that'll do it for us here. Congrats to the new student board that was elected. You can check my LinkedIn or the Conduct Detrimental LinkedIn. A bunch of new faces. To the extent you want to get involved as a official student board member or a young lawyer, we're always looking for people to contribute. Hit us up. We are condetrimental@gmail.com. I have someone manning the email now. Someone looking at every email that comes in. So not going to let anything get past us. Taryn, you're the best. Always enjoy having you. Cam Davis plus 190. Lock it in. Okay. Goodbye. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Maybe or maybe not. Goodbye.